Thank you, and first of all, it's really very nice to be here in the 20th anniversary of this forum, although I have not followed the whole 20. I want to make very quick remarks, two remarks. Number one, I saw the film, and I was amazed to see our former president being the same. Like Slovenia, by the way, every time I come here, nothing changes, it's the same. Perfect, perfect. And the second remark is, I don't know for what reason, maybe it's strategic, but the chairs become tinier and tinier and tinier. More and more uncomfortable. Maybe you have a message through the chairs, I don't know. This panel only. Just to tell us, don't.
There's a reason.
Just to give, just to tell us we have to finish quick. But if we wanted, you wanted us to finish quick. First of all, no Italian moderator, because they become the main player. And second, no Balkan people, you know. And no candidates, which are even more frustrating. So no, I think it's not that we are saying that we are ready for 2027, but it's that thanks to a Slovenian record breaker in swimming, we have a very clear objective put on our table by the Commission, challenging us to deliver on all benchmarks and on all criteria, and to end the negotiations until 2027. And then, of course, it will be the member states, and it's another part of the process. So what we are doing is exactly that. We are pushing and pushing and pushing and not asking questions, because the best thing to do with the European Union is to be free when you talk in Bled, but to say yes, 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 yes every time they say to you, you have to do this, you have to do this.
Not negotiations.
So if you mix Bled with Brussels, then you are F. So if you don't want to be F'd, you have to do in Bled the sharing of the vision and different opinions and everything you want to express, and then go to Brussels and simply be a very, very diligent student. But this being said, I want to say that there is no rush, because I believe that the most important part, for us at least, Albania, Montenegro is a big country, I'm talking about Albania, it's to use the process of the accession as a process of state building, because Europe is a bless for a country like us, because it's the only place where you can get the knowledge of how to build institutions. We never had institutions before in the real sense, and to build institutions is the most difficult exercise. And this is what makes the difference between Afghanistan, Iraq, or name it, where our very dear friends from the other side of the ocean have thought that with bombs and with values you can change the country, but it's not the case. What we have in Europe, although we got out of a history that was similar, very similar, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, in terms of lack of freedom, in terms of all brutalities, is the know-how of institution buildings. And so for this, I tell to everyone back home, we have to be diligent and to do the work. It's not something we necessarily like, you know. We don't necessarily like to have the traffic as perfect as in Germany. But we have to do it. And Europe is here to learn us, to teach us how to have traffic lights and how to have good circulation within the institutional life. It's something amazing, and we are progressing. But beyond the leadership, I must say, in our case, the Albanian people, we are far from the second in terms of being Euro-optimistic, because we love Europe unconditionally, and although Europe has made us suffer a lot, we have the full conviction that we are going to marry one day. So finally they have cut some of the bullshit, which took for many years, saying we love you, but we are not ready to talk to you. We love you, but now they are talking. So there is a step further, as Marta says, I say is marriage-based, she says is merit-based, so we need to deserve the marriage, and we are working for it.
Thank you, Eddie. And Milojko, let me turn to you on this. Tell us about your true love for the European Union. Tell us about what you are doing to persuade this at times rather difficult entity, animal, to indeed engage in marriage. And tell us what you're doing on, again, coming back to Marta's point, on putting reforms above the domestic fray of politics, and perhaps above all, what more could you do?
Well, first of all, yes, Montenegro, it is a small country in many ways, but it's one way, it's a very big one. And I thank Eddie for mentioning that, because I think Montenegro is the most ethnically diversified country in Europe, by far. We don't have ethnic majority. The only country in Europe that doesn't have ethnic majority. So everything has to be built by the compromise. And by the inclusive approach that includes everybody. And when I say everybody, it's not like Finnish, Norwegians and Danes. It's Montenegrins, Serbs, Albanians, Croats, Bosniaks, and other folks from the Balkans. The usual suspects that created instability for decades before, etc., etc. So you can imagine the amount of challenge that we are facing, obviously, in Montenegro, but winning this quote-unquote war in Montenegro, it's a small EU in a nutshell. It's a small Balkans in a nutshell. If we do this by values, and the way we are going to build a consensus is around European Union, obviously, accession, that's number one. Number two, it's about the economy. And number three is about the rule of law, treating everybody fairly and squarely, regardless of their ethnic background. And, this is what is really important, and I think we managed to do it to the big extent, obviously. In Montenegro now, within the majority, we have all the parliamentary Albanian, Serb, and Bosniak parties, that are obviously Montenegrins as well, but I'm saying those from the region, which was unthinkable before. Now we have them all in the government, in the majority, deciding together. And we just had
only the Germans to be an EU...
and Italians.
A German minority there.
So the thing is we had a big reform just recently, and we had whole parliament voting unisonly on electoral reform, which was a really big one. It was impossible to do it for like decades. The same was about the Constitutional Court and many other reforms that we couldn't really do for decades. Now we can do all of these things with more than 2/3 of the majority voting in favor, because of these three things. And this is what unifies the country. And this is what should unify us all in the European Union as well. I lived more than a decade in Asia, in Singapore, Japan, China. I've been to India many times. I've been to Indonesia many times. And yes, Montenegro is ethnically diverse, but looking from that perspective, all of our differences, they are ridiculous. In Montenegro you have Bosniak, Serbian, Croatian, and Montenegrin language. which is basically completely interchangeable. We can understand each other completely. We basically eat the same food. Our culture is almost the same, or it is the same. The differences are tiny. And we make them so big because we focus on the past and we don't focus on the future.
Right.
It's about time we just focus on the future. Or we're going to be insignificant. We are becoming insignificant, but we are going to be even more insignificant if we don't focus on the future, if we don't focus on what's ahead of us, because Asia is focused. Very, very focused. Next 3-4 years are going to be monumental in terms of the change, the amount of change, the exponential change that's coming in the next 3 or 4 years in AI, in other big technologies. It's going to be monumental. We cannot miss this opportunity. So, yes, Europe is unified in our diversity. Great. Now let's move on and let's focus on the future. And we have to focus on some of the things that very smart people like Mario Draghi already made it for us. Let's remove the internal barriers. We're talking about, tariff barriers with the US. How about we focus on our own internal barriers? They're like huge. Right. They're really preventing us from being really a single market. And I'm talking as somebody who is not even part of the single market. Yet. But we are becoming slowly, like Sept now and some other folks. So innovation, investing in innovation, making a good regulatory environment for innovation. Like 2 of our countries, we are small countries. We can be test beds for innovation. Together with the European Commission, we can sit down and say, hey, if it works out in Albania, if it works out in Montenegro, let's scale it up and let's become a European standard. These are the things, and actually that's good because 2 of our countries, we don't have vested interests of big industry folks. We can easily move ahead in terms of innovation, in terms of regulatory change. And our administrations and systems are relatively new, and we can actually adapt much faster. And if this approach works well at the time we join EU, how about we make it Europe-wide? And this is could be potential contribution to the European Union. Because you shouldn't be only receiving end. We should also be on the giving end.
Absolutely. And let me now jump on to member states. The prime ministers of which we have 2 at this panel, Croatia and, of course, our host, Slovenia. And let me turn to you, perhaps, Andrej, first. Ask you, I want to come back to this poison question. And, as Eddie was saying, yes, indeed, inevitably, member states are fundamental. They're there at the beginning of the process, and, of course, they have to be there at the end of the process. But perhaps they're a little bit too much in the way in the middle of the process, right? And that's where a lot of this, I think, poison and bilateralization comes from. Now, both Croatia and, of course, Slovenia, big supporters of enlargement. What is it that your countries could do to make that support, to make that friendship, to make enlargement happen, actually more forceful, more powerful indeed in ensuring that that poison is somehow sucked away from the process?
First of all, thank you once again for the invitation for being here at Bled 20th edition. Thank you, Robert, Madam President, Minister. It's a great pleasure, Commissioner, to be here, I think, 6th time in a row at this opening panel. A few points on enlargement, and then I'll come. As someone who has been who is coming from the country that was vaccinated with the poison that you have mentioned. My first point, enlargement has really gone through a revival since Russia's aggression against Ukraine. I think we need to take that truly into account. This is my most important point today for all of us. Second, Juncker said in 2014, no enlargement. Ursula didn't have time in the first mandate. This time, your mission letter looks more optimistic. In last 18 years, only Croatia joined. These are the facts which are sort of sobering in terms of the topic and the priority of the enlargement. Is it really a priority among the European Council members? I'm not so sure. We had a first debate on the European Council level conclusions when I just joined, which was a long time ago, 8 years ago, after I don't know how many years, which means that the heads of the European Union in terms of political leadership were not dealing adequately with the issue. We jointly revived it as of 2018, which is very good. Now it's a common practice to meet the leaders of the Western Balkans region, which was void from 2003 till 2018. These are the facts. But the main point about the enlargement is, of course, the preparation of the candidate countries, the political momentum, that the critical mass of support exists, but the real issue is the decision-making process and the budget. These are the two unspoken critical elements, whether the big countries will allow more smaller states with very modest contribution to the EU budget being allowed to decide when they believe that someone else should have an upper hand, because we all know that the 10 richest member states are financing 80% of the budget. These are the facts. It takes a while until people realize how things really happen, but that's how they happen. And that's why I think the candidate countries should really take a good look at what Germany and France are saying about the decision-making process. These are the consequences of the top jobs game back in 2019. I think it has the biggest and the deepest consequence to the decision-making process of the EU. And I see that not many people are understanding this, but this is the gist of the problem. When it comes to the bilateral issues, well, I'm in Slovenia, I'll be very polite, let's say history is history, but putting bilateral issues into the accession process is not very healthy for the accession process. I will just say that we have a current situation with North Macedonia, which is very visible. For those of you who are younger, North Macedonia was more advanced than Croatia when we had the Zagreb summit in 2000. They initialed the association, the stabilization and association agreement on the 24th of November 2000. I was there, so I remember that. And it's been 25 years. They haven't started properly the accession process, and we've been a member for more than 12 years. So a lot of things are ethically unacceptable, but they happen. And I think we should find a common strategy how to avoid this. I think there is a lot of maturity among most of the member states to not to do that, especially the whole QMB concept is being introduced, whether it's for enlargement, whether it's for foreign policy. And then again, you look at the smaller countries. If the QMB is installed, and since not everybody is behaving in the spirit that Antonio mentioned, and we know it, he is now the new master of 27-1 and the chairman's conclusions and all of the diplomatic nuances that we adopt, but that's the way it is. I have the feeling that many countries will never allow the consensus go away, because literally they become overnight irrelevant in terms of decision-making process, and that's why this sort of scholarly or theoretical narratives, they just hit the hard reality when it comes to the statement's craft and what one should do and what one can do. So I think we should continue with the healthy and impulses that Marta is saying, and help our friends to do the reforms. Unless both conditions are met, that the criteria are really fulfilled and the political momentum is created, there will be no enlargement. Very clear. We know it, and avoid all the poisonous elements as much as possible. Yep. If we behave in a poisonous manner, some countries will never join the European Union, and we are not behaving like that, on the record.
Absolutely. Robert, let me turn to you now, and I think picking up some of the remarks that Andrei was making there, and if I could sort of sum it up, you basically have a situation in which there is, at times, a very small but very active and vocal minority that stands against. And in general, there is a very large majority that is in favour, But that large majority at times, and this is me adding to this, is at times relatively silent. I mean, at times, indeed, enlargement is not as much as a priority as we would like it to be. So the question really to me is not so much what is it that can be done to persuade that very small and vocal minority, but what is it that can be done to make that majority in favour actually make that majority less of an abstract majority and more of an active majority? So what is it that you think member states, including your own, could do?
Okay, first, a big hello from myself as well to all the guests and the public. Many things have already been said, and what Andrei was explaining is how things work behind the scene at the European level. But I believe you're quite right when you say that majority of member states are, I would call them more or less not interested, or
neutral.
Not interested, because it's a nuisance to them to deal with it.
Right.
So that having been said, there is only one path forward. For the candidates, being as proactive as possible, taking both Milojko's and Edi's stance, saying, okay, this is something that we need to do because it's good for our country, it's good for the institution building, it's good for economy, it's good for our self-esteem, whatever. And on the other hand, a lot of proactive moves and steps by commissioners, especially by Marta, in order to make the European, first Commission, but then also European Council, realize that we need to implement some changes. And we need to do them before 27, meaning we don't have much time to start implementing those measures. And it seems, at the first glance, it seems rather straightforward. As what Marta was saying, or maybe Andrei, I'm not remember, okay, there is a political decision at the beginning, and there is obviously a political decision at the end of the negotiations, but in between it should be a meritocracy ruling and the technical process. It doesn't work that way right now. But I don't see any real reason why we cannot revert to this.
Right.
And this is something that will take some convincing, some very hard work by Antonio as well, in order to be possible to implement these decisions. But we've done it in other cases. 26 or 27 minus 1 formula worked in other cases, so it might work in this case as well. So it's doable. But Marta will have to find not just against the wind of poisoners, but also against the wind of ignorance by many others who are not really willing to go into the changes of the decision-making process. But still, it's doable, and Marta is, I know, she really lives for this work. She's doing, and she lives for results as well. So I think the enlargement process is in very good hands. The other good thing is that even though it comes from not so happy circumstances, is that after the Russian aggression on Ukraine, even though in war, they are really implementing all these institutional changes really fast. So they are not giving European Commission any excuse when they ask for speeding up the accession process. And it's going to be real hard to say no to people in war if and when they really fulfill all the conditions.
Yeah.
And this is the window for the Western Balkans. We spoke about it 2 years ago with Charles here, that the window has been opened. So it's really more or less now or never, because afterward, I really believe in 5 years it's going to be closed again. And there is another major change, and not that we are introducing it here, but we are just pinpointing it right now. In the past, mostly it was all the Western Balkans at once, because there are some big countries that we shall never leave behind. Okay, that was the narrative of the past. I truly believe that the big countries will follow only when they see small countries succeed. Unless we let those who have the merits succeed, the big countries will not change at all. So That's why we decided that for this
Montenegro
forum...
is the biggest country and is changing all the time.
That has already been ascertained.
That has been cleared already. Who is the biggest? Yeah.
How many ethnicities they have? They are huge.
So I believe they could be an inspiration to everyone else to follow suit. Yeah, I believe they're in good hands, and looking forward for 2 years from now to announce the results. That
we are putting pressure on them.